Ever feel like you need a secret decoder ring just to keep up? Maybe I don't get those really working dishes. Well, welcome to the Deep Dive, where your shortcut to being hopefully truly well-informed. We sift through those stacks of information and try to filter out the piece of all sprite back aha moments we all look for. Today, our mission is to cut through some of that noise and give you a clear view. We're looking at the latest consumer trends and news. This is all aggregated by the consumers.app website, and it's curated by the Consumers 360 News Commentary from June 16th, 2025. And we've got quite a mix today. Everything from navigating healthcare costs, brain-boosting diets, to the wild world of smart glasses, the future of AI, and even how sustainable fashion is evolving. Okay, let's dive in and unpack this. First up, let's talk about something that touches, well, many of our lives directly or indirectly: healthcare costs, specifically prescription drugs. There was a headline in Forbes recently that caught my eye. It asked, 7 important points about Part D drug plans and pharmacies. So, what's maybe the most immediate takeaway for listeners here?
Well, the thing that jumps out right away is just how much your choice of pharmacy can actually impact your out-of-pocket costs. Under Medicare Part D, it's not always obvious.
Really? Even the preferred ones?
Yeah, exactly. Even those preferred pharmacies, the ones that often advertise lower copays, they aren't always the cheapest option for every single drug. The key thing for you, the consumer, is that you really need to compare costs. Look at different pharmacies, check your specific plan's formulary. It's not just a suggestion. It's crucial if you want to manage those expenses effectively.
Okay, that's a really practical tip right there. But who's behind the scenes pulling the strings on these prices? I'm thinking about those pharmacy benefit managers, PBMs. How do they fit into this whole picture? It seems kind of murky.
It can be murky, yeah. PBMs are essentially powerful middlemen. They operate between the pharmacies, the drug manufacturers, and the insurance plans, including Medicare Part D. They manage the drug lists, they negotiate rebates, they process claims.
So they have a lot of influence.
A huge amount. And while they can secure significant discounts from manufacturers, which, should lower prices, they've also faced a lot of criticism. Some argue their business practices can actually paradoxically push drug prices up in certain cases. It's a very, very complex system.
It really sounds like it. Okay, so beyond the economics, what about technology? Is tech changing how pharmacies operate? Anything making it simpler for us?
Oh, absolutely. The whole idea of smart pharmacies isn't just science fiction anymore. It's happening. We're seeing facilities using robotics, AI, optimizing everything from dispensing drugs to managing inventory.
Like robots filling prescriptions.
Sort of, yeah. Imagine automated systems handling medications efficiently, accurately. It could dramatically improve accuracy and definitely cut down on those wait times. And that kind of tech directly benefits people on Medicare Part D, Faster, more accurate access to their meds.
That does sound like a big step forward. And speaking of costs again, one of the really significant policy changes for Medicare Part D folks was closing the donut hole. What was the real impact of that? Did it make a big difference?
Oh, it was a game changer. Closing the donut hole, which happened largely because of the Affordable Care Act, it made a huge difference. It brought in manufacturer discounts that really helped lessen the financial hit people took during what used to be a super expensive gap in coverage.
So people weren't suddenly facing massive bills mid-year.
Exactly. It made prescriptions much more affordable for millions of Medicare users, directly cut their out-of-pocket costs. It's a clear case of policy directly impacting, your wallet.
Right. Cost seems to be the recurring theme here. Yeah. How does that financial burden, that high cost, actually affect whether people take their medications as prescribed?
That's a really critical point. It's about patient behavior or adherence. Research, like a study on the cancer drug Gleevec, has shown a really clear link. High out-of-pocket costs lead to non-adherence.
Meaning people just don't fill the prescription.
Or they skip doses or delay refills, yeah. If the price at the counter is just too high, people are less likely to take the medicine they need. It really underlines why benefit designs that focus on affordability are so vital. It directly impacts health outcomes.
Okay, so looking forward a bit to 2025 maybe, are there big changes coming for drug pricing? Especially for those really expensive drugs.
Yeah, there are potentially big changes. By 2025, CMS, that's the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they aim to negotiate prices directly for up to 15 high-cost, single-source drugs.
Negotiate with manufacturers.
Exactly. We're talking about crucial drugs like certain anti-cancer and anti-diabetic products. This is part of the Inflation Reduction Act, aiming to control spending and lower costs for beneficiaries. It's a pretty significant move.
That does sound like good news.
Mm.
But what about those specialty drugs? The really complex, often newer ones? How do their costs fit in?
Specialty drugs. They're a unique challenge. They often have extremely high price tags.
Why is that?
It's usually a combination of things: the complexity of the drug itself, the cutting-edge research involved, and often a lack of any generic alternatives. So even when PBMs negotiate discounts, the final cost to the consumer can still be very high. These drugs tend to really drive up out-of-pocket expenses, and going back to our earlier point, can affect adherence. Managing their cost is a huge ongoing issue.
Okay, let's shift gears now. From managing drug costs to managing our own gray matter. We all want to keep our minds sharp, right, eh? And this next headline, this one's from National Geographic, offers a pretty fascinating path that says, the diet that could make your brain 7 years younger. Okay, tell us about this MIND diet.
The MIND diet, yeah, it's really interesting. It stands for Mediterranean-Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay.
Right, a mouthful.
It is, but the idea is clever. It's basically a hybrid, taking the best bits from the Mediterranean diet and the DSH diet. Researchers at Rush University Medical Center developed it specifically to help reduce cognitive decline and potentially delay diseases like Alzheimer's. The aha moment is how it strategically combines two already healthy diets to make something potentially even better for your brain.
So how is it different from just following the Mediterranean or the DSH diet on their own?
Good question. While DSH focuses mainly on lowering blood pressure and the Mediterranean diet is known for heart health and longevity, the MIND-D diet zeroes in on specific foods from both that are strongly linked to brain health. For instance, it really emphasizes berries and green leafy vegetables, maybe more so than the other two diets do on their own.
Why those specifically?
Because studies show they have strong neuroprotective properties, so it's less about general wellness and more about targeted brain benefits.
And the evidence behind this, is it strong? What about that Alzheimer's risk claim?
The research is pretty compelling, yes. Studies suggest that if you follow the MIND diet really strictly, you might lower your risk of Alzheimer's by up to 53%.
Wow, that's huge.
It is. And even moderate adherence showed a significant reduction, around 35%. The thinking is that the diet helps reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain, both of which are heavily linked to neurodegenerative diseases. It feels like a tangible way to potentially protect yourself.
Okay, so practically speaking, what foods are we talking about? What should people be eating and what should they limit?
Right, the specifics. The MIND diet highlights 10 brain-healthy food groups. Let's see. Green leafy vegetables, other vegetables, nuts, berries, especially blueberries, beans, whole grains, fish, poultry, olive oil, and interestingly, even a little bit of wine.
And the foods to avoid or limit?
Yeah, it strongly recommends limiting red meats, butter and stick margarine, cheese, pastries, and sweets, and fried or fast foods. The real power seems to lie in the combination, the synergy of these good foods working together to protect the brain.
So, okay, this sounds great, but what does it mean for you, our listener, trying to adopt this? Are there challenges? And what else is happening in brain health research?
Well, like any diet change, sticking to it consistently can definitely be a challenge. That's probably the biggest hurdle. And of course, more long-term research is always helpful to fully understand the lasting effects.
But there's other progress too.
Yes, absolutely. The good news is we're seeing some incredible advancements in detecting cognitive impairment much earlier. New studies are using sophisticated AI to analyze brain scans, even things like speech patterns or eye movements, to pick up subtle changes years before symptoms become obvious.
That can make a huge difference for intervention.
Exactly. And on the nutrition side, besides diet, recent research also points to comprehensive approaches, combining nutrition, lifestyle changes, and sometimes specific oral supplements showing real promise in improving cognitive scores, especially in older adults. It's becoming a more holistic picture.
All right, let's totally shift gears now from what we put into our bodies to what we put on them, and also what's changing our jobs. This next deep dive is into tech. It starts with a headline from Wallpaper magazine. What's new in the wearable world of smart glasses and extended and augmented reality? So what is new with smart glasses? Are they finally becoming mainstream?
Well, mainstream might still be a bit strong, but the technology is definitely advancing. The newly released Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses are a really good example. They're a collaboration between Meta, Facebook's parent company, and EssilorLuxottica, the company that makes Ray-Bans.
What do they do?
They pack a lot in. Dual cameras, open your speakers so you can listen to audio without blocking your ears, a microphone, a touchpad on the frame. They run on a pretty powerful chip, the Qualcomm Snapdragon AR1 Gen 1. They can even live stream video directly to Facebook and Instagram.
And AI is involved somehow.
Yes, they integrate Meta AI, which allows for voice commands, and can even use computer vision to understand what you're looking at.
That sounds way beyond the early attempts, like Google Glass. How did we get from those early versions to this?
It's been quite an evolution, yeah. Early smart glasses, like Google Glass, were often quite clunky. Basically a small display attached to glasses. Now they're becoming much more sophisticated wearable computers. They can run their own apps, track your head movement, overlay digital information onto your real-world view.
Augmented reality, essentially.
Exactly. They connect via Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, GPS. They have features like fitness tracking, media playback. It's a huge leap from just showing notifications to being genuinely interactive devices.
Okay, the features sound impressive. But we know from history, especially with Google Glass, that there can be major hurdles. What about privacy concerns with these new Meta glasses?
That's the big one. It's a crucial point. These Ray-Ban Meta glasses have already faced criticism, mainly around privacy. There's a general sort of mistrust around social media companies and data, but specifically here, the concern is the recording indicator light.
The little light that shows it's recording.
Right. Critics say it's too small, potentially not obvious enough to people nearby that they might be being recorded. And this directly echoes the problems Google Glass had. Remember the term glass holes? That backlash was largely driven by privacy fears, and it ultimately led to Google shelving the consumer version.
So it's a known challenge.
Definitely. It's this constant tightrope walk, pushing innovation forward versus ensuring public acceptance and addressing legitimate privacy concerns. And beyond just the consumer products, there's some really fascinating, more conceptual stuff happening in academic research, too. Concepts like inverse augmented reality. Imagine a virtual agent, like an AI assistant, that can observe both virtual things and real-world objects alongside you.
Blurring the lines even further.
Exactly. Or symmetrical reality, which is this idea of a unified framework where physical reality and all virtual realities are seen as part of one single system. And to handle all the potential information overload from these systems, researchers are working on things like Select Visor.
What's that?
It's basically smart filtering. It would intelligently decide what digital information is most relevant to show you at any given moment to avoid overwhelming you. These are still early ideas, but they point towards a future where digital and physical are much more deeply integrated.
Okay, so from glasses augmenting our view of reality to tech that might reshape reality itself, or at least our jobs. Our next headline is from The Conversation, found via msn.com, and it asks the question on literally everyone's mind. Will AI take your job? The answer could hinge on the 4 S's of the technology's advantages over humans.
Okay, so first off, how are these generative AI tools, the chatbots, the image creators, how are they impacting industries right now?
They're having a profound impact already. Generative AI tools like ChatGPT for text or models like DALL-E for images are automating tasks across so many sectors. Software development, healthcare analysis, financial modeling, creative work, and entertainment. The list goes on. They're creating totally new forms of data and analysis.
But there's a downside. There are significant ethical concerns, absolutely. Potential job displacement is a major one, obviously. But also risks like misuse for cybercrime, deepfakes, and complex issues around intellectual property. You know, who owns the output when the AI learned from millions of existing works?
Right. And when we talk about AI displacing workers, what specific kind of AI are we really talking about there?
We're mostly talking about these very advanced models called large language multimodal models, or LLMs. Think GPT-4 and its successors. These can understand and generate not just text, but also images, code, audio, multiple modalities. Research does suggest they could displace human workers in various sectors because they can automate increasingly complex tasks that previously required human judgment.
So should we be worried?
Well, it's important to stress that the conversation isn't just about replacement. A lot of focus is on coexistence. How can AI augment human capabilities? What new roles might be created? Strategies are actively being explored.
It's just moving so fast. How is AI changing the global economy overall?
It's dramatically reshaping it. The potential for enhancing productivity and efficiency is enormous across pretty much every industry: healthcare, transport, finance, manufacturing. But as we've touched on, this transformation comes with risks: algorithmic bias, privacy violations, security vulnerabilities, and yes, the socioeconomic impact of job displacement. Tackling these effectively really requires strong collaboration, governments, industry, researchers to set up guardrails for responsible development.
That raises a really important point about global equity. How can AI benefit developing regions, say, in Africa?
Yeah.
What's the potential there?
AI actually holds significant potential for regions like Africa. It could improve efficiency and access in vital areas like healthcare diagnostics, precision agriculture, financial services for underserved populations, and personalized education.
Is this actually happening?
Yes, we're seeing a rise in homegrown indigenous AI innovations across the continent. Plus, strong international collaborations are helping foster a unique African AI ecosystem. Of course, challenges remain things like bridging the digital literacy gap, ensuring infrastructure is adequate, and managing the risk of job displacement need careful handling through policy and investment.
And what was the key technological breakthrough that really kicked off this current AI boom we're in?
The current explosion in AI capabilities is largely thanks to advancements in a specific type of deep neural network architecture called the transformer. This architecture was introduced in a landmark paper back in 2017. Transformers, combined with massive data sets and huge increases in computing power, are what enabled the creation of these incredibly sophisticated models like GPT, capable of tasks that seemed like science fiction just a few years ago.
So, with all this progress, what's the ultimate goal for companies like OpenAI or Google DeepMind? And how important are partnerships in this space?
Well, companies like OpenAI and Google DeepMind are really pushing the boundaries. Many state their long-term goal is achieving artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
AGI.
Meaning AI that could hypothetically perform pretty much any intellectual task that a human can. It's still theoretical, but that's the direction. They're focusing on integrating different AI techniques, machine learning, reasoning, decision-making to get closer to that. And partnerships are absolutely crucial, especially in places like Africa. Governments and the private sector working together provide the essential infrastructure, the policy frameworks, the funding. This supports deploying AI solutions to tackle real-world socioeconomic challenges, helps promote local innovation, and tries to ensure AI development is inclusive and ethically sound.
Okay, one final area for our deep dive today. Something we all interact with daily, maybe without thinking too much about its impact, our clothes. Our last headline comes from British Vogue asking, how should we talk about sustainability in 2025? So what's the core problem with the fashion industry and sustainability right now?
The fast fashion model has a really significant environmental footprint. It's huge. The industry contributes something like 2% of global carbon emissions each year. That's massive. Plus, there's enormous water consumption, pollution from dyes and chemicals, and just mountains of textile waste.
Why so much waste?
It's largely down to the reliance on cheap synthetic materials like polyester, and the whole business model is built on rapid production cycles and encouraging consumers to see clothes as disposable. The aha moment for consumers, I think, is realizing that every purchase decision feeds into this cycle. Our choices really do have power.
It does sound pretty overwhelming, but is technology offering any solutions here?
Yes, technology is playing an increasingly important role, actually. AI and machine learning, for example, are being used to help brands forecast trends more accurately.
How does that help sustainability?
If you can predict demand better, you can optimize production, reduce overstock, and therefore cut down on waste. That shrinks the ecological footprint quite a bit. We're also seeing things like virtual try-on technology, which can potentially reduce the number of items bought and then returned, cutting down on shipping emissions and waste from damaged returns.
Okay, so tech helps the industry side. What about us, the consumers? How much influence do we actually have in making fashion more sustainable?
Consumer awareness is arguably the most critical driver. As you, the listener, become more educated about the impacts of fast fashion, both environmental and social, like labor conditions, you increasingly demand better. You look for eco-friendly products, you ask for transparency about manufacturing, you support brands with ethical practices. This demand directly pushes brands to change. Clear communication from brands about their sustainability efforts can really shape behavior and empower more responsible choices. Your wallet talks.
That leads nicely into the idea of slow fashion. How is that different? How does it tackle these problems?
Slow fashion is essentially the antidote to fast fashion. It's gaining a lot of traction. It fundamentally shifts the focus towards quality, longevity, and overall sustainability.
Buy less but better.
Exactly. Own fewer items, but choose high-quality garments that are designed and made to last. This dramatically reduces the environmental impact per wear and cuts down on that constant churn and waste. It also champions things like ethical production, fair wages for workers, and using sustainable or natural materials, directly contrasting with the fast fashion model.
So what are some of the specific trends we're seeing in sustainable fashion right now? And Are there still big challenges for brands trying to adopt these?
We are seeing positive trends, definitely an increased use of innovative eco-friendly materials, think recycled fabrics, organic cotton, mushroom leather, things like that. Also, real efforts to improve energy and water efficiency during manufacturing. But yes, brands face significant challenges. Consumer tastes change so quickly, which makes it hard for brands committed to slow, sustainable production to keep up without risking overproduction themselves.
It's a balancing act.
A tough one. Integrating new tech, like AI for forecasting, requires big changes to business models and significant investment. Plus, wider economic shifts or global events can always disrupt supply chains and sustainability plans. It's a constant effort.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. What a journey through the consumer landscape. From figuring out health costs and maybe boosting our brain power to getting a handle on smart tech's future and making more thoughtful fashion choices. It's really clear just how much is changing all around us. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to Consumers 360. It helps us keep bringing you the deep dive in critical consumer information.
And maybe just one final thought to leave you with. As technology keeps advancing and our world gets more and more interconnected, how do you see your own role as an informed consumer, navigating not just your personal well-being, but also your impact on the wider world?